Para completion, we've covered this sort of a question pattern in our video library again. But let's look at the context. So there's this question, his query starts here. So he says, Madam, this question is from workbook, okay, the answer given is 1, okay. But in the passage, the author is discussing regarding technology and market and S-curve, which contains different stages and ends with saturation state, okay. But in the option 1, it is mentioned change in the market is consistent, which does not go with S-curve. Please explain me, madam, regarding where I was going wrong at arriving the answer. Okay. Where I said either you'll have some blanks, some sentence missing in the middle of the paragraph or towards the end or sometimes even in the beginning. Alright, these are para completion questions. You need to look at the context, pay attention to repeat words again. It's the same strategy formula that you apply for jumble sentence and close passage. Right? So, if you look at the context here, right, I'm going to quickly read just to point out market trends are fluctuated on the demographics and technology and a macro. So, clue words again, right? Fluctuating, which means it's not stable, it's prone to change. In a macroeconomical view, the current state of consumer trust and spending will vary, right? Again, change. In a microeconomical view, demographics within a market will change the advancement of businesses and companies. With the introduction of the internet, consumers have access to different vendors as well as substitute products and services, changing the direction of which a market will go. Despite that, it is believed that market trends itself, right? Market trends follow one direction over a matter of time. So which means over a matter of time, markets kind of keep looking at what's the current trend and change accordingly. There are many different factors that can change this idea. Technology S-curves, as is explained in the book, The Innovator's Dilemma, this is the book, states that technology will start slow, then increase in users once better understood, eventually leveling off once another technology replaces it. So basically what they're saying is, people change with time because technology keeps advancing. Right? So given the context, if you look at the context and look at all the repeat words and phrases, look at your options. Option 1 says this proves that change in the market is actually consistent. How much more clearer can it get? Right? That has to be your culminating sentence to the paragraph. That's what it's saying constantly. It's saying, boss, technology will change and market catering to the consumers obviously has to be in line with technology. So, advance in technology will also consequently lead to change. So, the only thing, it's like that phrase, right, which says, right, the only thing constant is change. And why is it not option 2? Because we're referring to what's happening in the market, right? That's the context. Let's not forget the context. So, why is option A more effective? Because we're referring to different vendors, we're referring to market trends, and the topic sentence also is referring to market trends. So our context is revolving around market trends. So that's why A is more effective than, 1 is more effective than 2. Fluctuations with these, all of the others are just generalizing, right? Option 2 is generalizing. Change is inevitable. Yes, that's a very generic statement, agreeable statement. Fluctuations with these changes do not last long. Okay, that's also generic, specific to the topic sentence. Be prepared for the change. Again, very generic. Changing changes the fortunes, kind of unrelated. So we can safely say that option 1 is more effective and closer to the context in hand, right? So that's why option 1 is the answer. Any language is more than an instrument of conveying ideas, more even than instrument for working upon the feelings of others and for self-expression. And then we have dash. It's almost like a para completion question. It's just a small one. The events of the real world are never felt or respond as a machine would do it. Okay. So we have options. Now let's quickly analyze, right? Topic sentences. So what's the purpose of the language itself, right? It's basically an instrument that conveys ideas. More even than instrument for working upon the feelings of others and for self-expression. So more than this, it's an instrument that conveys ideas. Okay. And then the closing sentence says, the events of the real world are never felt or respond as a machine would do it. So it's almost like talking about different things that are happening, right? Comparing events of the real world to how a machine would do certain things in terms of communication, right? So now let's look at our options. We need a sentence that kind of obviously refers to language, but also kind of gives an idea about the closing sentence, right? It's a bridge between these two. Let's look at our options. Option 1, common sense hold that different languages are parallel methods for expressing the same thoughts. Okay. 2, the lack of true equivalences between two languages is merely the outward expression of differences between two people. Okay. 3, every language is also a means of categorizing experience. 4, there is a selection process and an interpretation in the very act of response. Okay, now let's go back and quickly look at these contexts. Now, some of the sentences that I will immediately eliminate are option 2 and 4. I'll tell you why. Option 2 says, the lack of true equivalences between two languages is merely the outward expression of differences between two people. Now, this is very, very specific, but the closing sentence of the context, right? And the general topic sentence also is not really bringing in people into the context yet, right? Maybe this can be a sentence somewhere, I don't know, later on in the passage, right, from a larger context. So since this is not closely related to either the topic sentence or the specifically related to the topic sentence or the closing sentence at hand, I will quickly eliminate option 2. I will also eliminate option 4. There is a selection process and an interpretation in the very act of response. Selection process, interpretation, no. The topic sentence just says language, instrument to convey ideas. Last one says there is a difference in terms of, real world and machine world, right? Now let's go back and look at 1 and 3. 1 says common sense hold that different languages are parallel methods for expressing the same thoughts. Here again, keep in mind, thoughts only people have. Machine doesn't have thoughts, right? It's the input fed in by the person. So here, I would go back and fall on 3 for the simple fact that it says every language is also a means of categorizing experience. The experiences of the real world as well as the experience that you feel in terms of a machine. So it's a great example because right now, look at us, right? Yes, I'm there physically. We're using the help of a machine. The experience is different, right? We're not in a classroom setting. Right? Communication is still happening. We're not in a classroom setting. I'm somewhere, right? And you guys are somewhere elsewhere. So right now what we're doing is a classic example of how language is playing. The universal language right now, that's what we're conveying in English. Instead of conveying ideas, right? So here I would go with 3 as my option. Any language is more than an instrument of conveying ideas, more even than an instrument for working upon the feelings of others and for self-expression. Every language is also a means of categorizing experience. So the events of the real world are never felt or respond as a machine would do it. This makes more sense for me. I would align more with option 3, right?